In April 2025, the skies near Taiwan became a legal battleground. A Chinese J-10C fighter warned a US spy plane that it had breached a 24 nautical mile zone. The American crew refused to turn back, insisting it was international airspace. Was this a reckless escalation, or something even bigger? The answer hinges on the true meaning behind those fateful radio transmissions. International law draws a hard line at 12 nautical miles from a nation's coast. Within that band, the airspace and waters are sovereign, and no foreign military aircraft or ships may enter without permission. This standard appears in Article 3 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, which most of the world's governments, including China, have formally accepted. Beyond that 12 nautical mile mark, the ocean and the skies above become international territory, open for navigation and overflight by all states. But the law also describes a second belt, the contiguous zone, stretching from 12 to 24 nautical miles offshore. Article 33 of UNCLOS defines this area, but its powers are sharply limited. Coastal states may enforce laws only on customs, immigration, fiscal, and sanitary matters, never on general security or defense. Critically, the contiguous zone does not grant sovereignty over the water, and it does not extend sovereign airspace. Foreign military aircraft, including intelligence platforms, retain the right to fly above these waters so long as they remain outside the 12 nautical mile limit. The distinction is not just academic. In the Taiwan Strait, the corridor of airspace beyond 12 nautical miles is recognized by international law as open to all. The phrase 24 nautical mile zone used by the Chinese pilot borrows from the language of the contiguous zone, but it carries no authority to exclude foreign aircraft or assert airspace control. The only enforcement rights in this belt relate to customs and border regulations, not military interception. For the crews involved, these boundaries are not theoretical. They shape every decision and every confrontation, separating routine patrol from international incident. The phrase China Taiwan 24 nautical mile zone stands out for its legal and diplomatic weight. Unlike the clear 12 nautical mile boundary recognized by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, this language blurs the line between legitimate enforcement and a claim of sovereign airspace. Legal commentators point out that the contiguous zone, stretching from 12 to 24 nautical miles, is strictly limited in scope. It allows only for customs, immigration, and sanitary controls. There is no legal basis for a state to assert airspace sovereignty or to demand that military aircraft depart from this band. By invoking the 24 nautical mile mark as if it were a hard border, the People's Liberation Army pilot introduced a new layer of ambiguity into an already tense environment. Experts in international maritime law warn that using this phrase is more than a matter of semantics. Dr. Mei Lin, a professor of international law, explains that conflating the contiguous zone with sovereign airspace is a deliberate tactic. It signals an intent to expand operational control without the backing of international norms. This move, she notes, risks undermining the legal clarity that has kept military encounters in the Taiwan Strait from spiraling out of control. The United States and its allies consistently interpret the contiguous zone as a limited enforcement belt, not a barrier to military overflight. The novelty of the People's Liberation Army's wording reflects a shift in operational messaging. By framing the area as a singular zone, the pilot placed immediate pressure on the US crew and set a precedent for future confrontations. Legal analysts caution that such language, if repeated, could gradually alter expectations and practices in the region. For military planners and policymakers, the phrase now serves as a new legal yardstick, one that will shape the mechanics of future intercepts and the boundaries of acceptable conduct. At 35,000 feet, the RC-135W rivet joint traces a steady R-key southwest of Taiwan, its ADS-B transponder broadcasting position to the world. Inside, a crew of specialists works banks of consoles, tuning antenna arrays to catch every signal from the Chinese mainland. The aircraft's mission is clear: gather electromagnetic emissions, intercept military communications, and map the electronic landscape as the People's Liberation Army's Strait Thunder-2025A exercise unfolds below. The RC-135W's sensor cone sweeps hundreds of kilometers, but the aircraft itself remains unarmed, relying on altitude, speed, and international law for protection. From the east, a J-10C streaks into view. Built for speed and agility, the fighter closes the distance at supersonic pace, guided by ground controllers. The J-10C's radar locks onto the American reconnaissance plane long before visual contact. As the gap narrows, Intercept protocol takes over. The Chinese pilot approaches to within 1 kilometer kilometer, holding formation off the RC-135W's wing. Standard safe separation norms call for at least 500 meters, but in practice, the margin can shrink further during tense encounters. The RC-135W's flight crew maintains course, eyes scanning for any sign of an aggressive maneuver. The J-10C shadows the larger aircraft, sometimes drifting into its blind spots, close enough that turbulence from the jet wash becomes a concern. In the cockpit, both pilots monitor their instruments and radios, aware that a sudden move or a misread signal could escalate the encounter. The choreography of the intercept, vectoring, closure, visual identification, radio challenge plays out with practiced precision, but the risk is always present. For the crews, these moments are defined by discipline and restraint, where international boundaries are measured not just in miles, but in meters and seconds. Strait Thunder-2025A unfolded as a demonstration of force on an unprecedented scale in the Taiwan Strait. Over a 24-hour period, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense tracked 59 PLA aircraft and 23 Navy vessels operating in close coordination. The airspace around the strait became a dense web of overlapping flight paths and surveillance zones. 31 of those aircraft crossed the median line, moving into sectors of Taiwan's air defense identification zone from the north, center, southeast, and southwest. Naval units maintained positions east and west of the island, while government-affiliated ships added another layer to the operational picture. For PLA planners, this density was by design. The exercise's timing, with aircraft and ships converging near Taiwan's southern tip, left little ambiguity about intent. The RC-135W's approach toward the Hengchun Peninsula occurred as the exercise shifted from maneuver to live fire readiness. Flight track data show the American reconnaissance plane withdrew toward the Ryukyu Islands approximately 1 hour before the PLA's scheduled firing window. This sequence was no coincidence. The massive presence of PLA forces, combined with the real-time movement of surveillance and combat platforms, created an environment where interception became almost inevitable. Every sortie, every ship's position was part of a larger choreography. The PLA's ability to coordinate dozens of aircraft and naval assets, and to vector a J-10C to intercept a foreign reconnaissance plane at the edge of the exercise zone, underscored a clear message. In this environment, the margin for unchallenged foreign surveillance had narrowed to its thinnest point. No formal agreement defines how close Chinese and American aircraft can approach each other over the Taiwan Strait. Without published rules of engagement, every intercept becomes a test of nerve and judgment. On April 3rd, the J-10C closed in on the RC-135W, at times narrowing the gap to less than the recommended 500 meters. In this environment, the smallest miscalculation, a slip of the controls, or a misunderstood radio call could trigger disaster. The absence of clear protocols leaves both crews relying on habit and training rather than shared procedures. Evidence from radio monitoring suggests more than just close flying. Analysts noted irregularities in the RC-135W signal reception during the encounter, raising the possibility that the J-10C employed electronic jamming. If true, this would have disrupted the American crew's ability to communicate and to collect the very signals they were sent to monitor. Jamming in such tight quarters adds another layer of risk, making it harder for pilots to coordinate and increasing the chance of a mid-air collision. In this crowded, ambiguous airspace, every second of uncertainty carries real consequences. Policy advisors studying these confrontations point to a range of practical measures designed to prevent future incidents from spiraling out of control. The most direct tool is a military-to-military hotline, an open phone line linking senior commanders on both sides, allowing for direct communication in moments of crisis. While the United States and China have maintained such channels since the late 1990s, their actual use remains rare, often hampered by political mistrust. Regional observers note that, despite these mechanisms, the frequency of risky encounters has only increased. In 2024 alone, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense recorded over 1,000 entries by People's Liberation Army aircraft into its air defense identification zone, a record pace that puts constant pressure on all sides. The growing pattern of close intercepts and ambiguous radio warnings highlights the need for clearer rules of engagement and more reliable crisis communication. Without such safeguards, each new encounter carries the risk of miscalculation, raising the stakes for every pilot and policymaker operating above these contested waters. Every intercepted signal and radio warning now risks becoming a global headline. As rival claims harden in the Taiwan Strait, split-second decisions can echo far beyond these skies. The stakes are no longer theoretical, they are unfolding in real time. What would you do in that cockpit?